Bungalow Bill here, and welcome back to From the Depths. Today, I have a bowl of fresh figs, a glass of red wine, and I'm prepared to finally eliminate the Steel Striders once and for all. This series has grown a little long in the tooth compared to my normal playthroughs because, well, building everything live in Nether just takes a long time and has given the Steel Striders just a lot of time to harvest resources and prepare for me. And it's really an aspect of the campaign that I've never seen before, given how fast I usually end it. Anyway, let's dive straight into things and start steamrolling them. Alright, here we've got the Excalibur. There's also another Excalibur and a Cat Shark, but I have the battle size turned down so that I don't spawn in Miles. As much as I love him, I really don't want to spawn him in for this battle. So, I love the Excalibur quite a bit because of how explosive it is. Unfortunately, my cram cannons shot off a little bit prematurely. I could adjust that. You can set a minimum required detection accuracy. We're probably also having stability issues seeing some of these shells. We shouldn't have gotten hit that easily. But, which I do for craft that I didn't build quite this hastily. I definitely forgot a few things. And it looks like miles of service may be necessary here, but you can only set that detection accuracy down to 10, which isn't great. Another way to do it is to just turn off your weapons for a little bit at the beginning of combat with ACBs or breadboards. I just love how these weapons pop on the Excalibur. It's so much fun to fight. It is, of course, still way more expensive than the Husk. And the Husk was built hastily out of wood, which is very vulnerable to the guns from the Excalibur. So it's suffering quite a bit. It looks like we're going to lose the Husk. And Miles, or additional Pulley Warriors, one of which just spawned in because we got the volume, are going to have to take over from here. Yeah, the Husk's at 76%, probably doesn't have much firepower left. I would expect a lucky hit from some of these missiles from the Pulley Warrior to do some damage. However, the Pulley Warriors are very light and cheap ships. They have plenty of wood spam, but that's only going to do so much. It's doing something, but you can see wood just isn't the best against the Excalibur. It looks like we're going to pretty cost-effectively get through the first Excalibur, but definitely not the second one without Miles' help. You can also tell that I haven't really done damage to the remaining turrets because they haven't just exploded, which is what happens to them. Unfortunately, that Pulley Warrior is out of range, so just not a great situation with just one Pulley Warrior. One Pulley Warrior engaging.
Listening.
The best solution for me at the moment is probably just to turn up the battle size and spawn everything in. Which, didn't do anything for me. Don't know if it spawned in anything from the Steel Striders, but okay, now I'm going to sit here for a very long time, so I'm going to turn off the recording for a while until something happens. Well, that took quite a while, but Miles is here. It does look like even with the battle size turned all the way up, the Steel Striders are only going to be able to put one Excalibur in at a time. Miles does cost about the same as two Excaliburs, a little bit less. And the Excaliburs really are not going to like these missiles. I'm surprised that any were able to hit without just completely detonating Excalibur. There was some lag there, though, which I definitely seemed to like spawning something in rather than turrets popping, but may have just been turrets popping. And yes, does not take many of those missiles for the Excalibur to die. It doesn't take a very large cost advantage for it to be quite the difficult fight unless you really have a significant counter to the enemy. The Husk was really at too big a disadvantage, given that it completely whiffed its first barrage and had to sit there for over 20 seconds getting shot at by Excalibur. If it hit its first barrage, it would have certainly been a lot closer. Alright, that looks like the Cat Shark. Oh, and the Excalibur. Alright, everything has spawned in. Oh, it's a Banshee. Never mind. Right, I thought there was a Cat Shark here. That's why I said it looked like a Cat Shark, but no, it's doing the thing where it pops smoke immediately that Banshees do, and is shooting missiles, which is the other thing that Banshees do. Not exactly terribly worried about it. Oh, and we have Pulley Warrior spawning in as well. So their missiles are getting into the party. Fortunately, Miles is way more resilient to the Excalibur's guns than the Husk was, given how spread out Miles is. HE is not a good way to take it out. Actually, I'm not sure really anything is. You can use Thump, but Thump is not an efficient way to kill vehicles. I suppose if you're pretty much guaranteed to shoot at missiles with your aimpoint selection, you can, I don't know, kill these missile silos one at a time, but that's really the best you can do. Looks like we either rammed the Banshee or came very close to ramming it. We probably rammed it. Pulley Warriors aren't very happy here. They're basically very light and cheap Banshees. None of my vehicles here, I'm gonna despawn the Excalibur. This is one of the things I don't like about the slow despawn, is that radar-guided missiles will kill dying enemies over and over and over again, and just kind of give the enemies an unlimited meat sink until you pause the game and despawn the craft. In addition to the, the lag that it adds. Alright. It's probably too late for these. Oh, these missiles are retargeting. Radar-guided missiles have a 120-degree arc. I wasn't sure if they'd be able to see or not. They don't have turning fins or that sort of thing on them. Some of these even turned from beyond what looked like the 120-degree arc. I guess that's from center, not the total width of it. It's more like a cone angle, so that really does extend pretty far behind them. Well, anyway, fortunately Miles was able to come in here and save the day for me. Alright, I just gotta say, make sure that you have operational lasers when fighting these Lightning Hood craft, because man, these take forever to kill with APS. I've been watching these guys for pretty much forever, and since both laser turrets got taken off the Husk, this has been taking a long time. These craft are really dodgy, and even high-speed APS does not do much against them, so pretty much I'm just hoping that they crash into each other, or I get a few lucky shots. This is a Hake. The Peregrines are similar, and the Peregrines don't seem to have any sort of scuttle settings, or at least not ones that I've seen activate yet. Oh yeah, this isn't great. Fortunately this is going to despawn itself due to running far away and getting damaged in enemy territory, but I've seen Lost Control ejecting on this multiple times without it despawning. This has been a real pain. It has absolutely no control over where it's flying. It is actually at very low health, so it probably should have despawned a long time ago. However, we spawned in the one relatively high-strength enemy now, the Maelstrom, which is going to be a bit scary because basically everything that I have here right now is fairly injured. Hopefully they'll be able to hit the Maelstrom. Not something that I've fought very much. We'll see if it gets its altitude under control before it despawns itself. As shields and lambs, they're not great solutions for the damage that it's taking, but these missiles will just destroy us, and they're not aimed for the craft that can actually take it. it's going to stay. So it looks like it's slow enough and not able to maneuver that well, so that if the Husk could get an altitude advantage over it, it would be able to hit it with its cram cannons, but that's not going to happen here. With the laser turrets offline, I can only imagine that the Husk is just going to die eventually. It's doing okay against the munitions from the Maelstrom, though. Doesn't seem like there's that much damage being taken, so maybe it'll win from chip damage eventually. However, if my memory serves, there isn't good Lamb's node coverage on the back, and not amazing coverage on sort of the sides into the rear, and that's sort of how these turrets got taken out. I'm not sure why this one's not functioning. It's still aiming and everything. There's probably a breach in the laser system somewhere. So yeah, this seems like it might just be a long battle of attrition. So something that I have noticed that is making this battle take way longer than it used to is the small tweak in the HE damage calculations, which I think we're actually supposed to make them do a little bit more damage, but basically be even, has really, really nerfed the shells that I built for this campaign. So they're doing about half the damage that they used to. It used to be about half kinetic, half HE. Now it's almost all kinetic. And the reason seems to be that at small gauges, the cutoff for when HE actually stops doing any damage seems to be higher than it used to be. So these small 50mm shells just don't do any HE damage a significant fraction of the time, and even when they do, it's pretty minuscule. Testing other craft, I found that bumping it up to around 84 gives good results. I'm not going to rebuild these vehicles, but it is a reason that I'm experiencing much greater difficulty than I was earlier. Well, this has taken quite a while, but the Maelstrom is rapidly running out of materials now. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be doing a bombing run or something, but it's winding up usually doing a tight circle instead. Most of its control surfaces are stripped out. A lot of its exterior missiles have been taken off, and it doesn't have nearly the amount of flight time that my fleet has, so given that neither of them can really damage each other, it was just inevitable that the Maelstrom would eventually run out. So the Meatball and Incredible Husk combo has been doing a fantastic job of base breaking so far, but I do not know if that streak is going to continue against the Iceberg Logistics Hub, which is just big. That's what it has going for it. It's really big. And the Meatball is not going to tank its missiles very well, at least if they make it through. Without the cursor in the middle of my screen, I'm going to have a little bit of trouble getting these missiles, but it looks like I was eventually successful. So far, the Husk looks like it's been soaking them, which is really what I want. This one took some damage. Basically no interceptors came in to stop those. If I check the interceptor damage, yeah, that's pretty high. And the health percentage, okay, the Husk took quite a bit. The Iceberg Logistics Hub is about equivalently torn up, but it's large. There's a lot of meat here to shoot at, and a fairly significant amount of the volume just doesn't do that much if you shoot it. I think these APS cannons are getting sad pretty quickly, but there's still a lot of missiles going on here. Although now we're being reasonably successful with the interceptor launches. This APS is hurting a little bit. Although those missiles were staggered and we definitely didn't really have another interceptor launch ready by the time they shot off. Also, it's not as extravagant as Miles, but the Iceberg Logistics Hub it's a bit spread out. It's hard to really get good hits on it. So we're just kind of shooting all over, and some of the places we're shooting are useful. Some of the targeting leaves something to be desired, though. However, it does look like we've knocked off a reasonable amount of firepower, and the husk has just been soaking up damage the way it usually does. These missiles look like they don't have reinforced bodies, so as long as they get hit by interceptors, I'm safe. And the Iceberg's logistics hub is indeed despawning. I was a bit worried that I'd have some trouble shooting at it with these frail wooden contraptions, but it seems this was just enough firepower in the end, and that is in fact a lot of damage. Alright, so here's a fairly significant battle. There's a Trondheim which has not spawned in yet as far as I'm aware. There's no box there. Okay, the Victoria. I was thinking that is a bit smaller than a Trondheim. There's a Cyclone here, already firing its lasers, particle cannons really. There's a Tsunami hiding somewhere. Yes, here it is. And I actually have sonar this time, and automatic detection is set to the standard 0.1. Which I realized was not enough for my wireless snoopers actually, so this is sort of attempt 2 for me to take on the submarine fleet. So let's see how we do. I'm just going to watch automatic targeting at first, which appears to have just annihilated the Tsunami. It is still steering, I think, but its butt fell off. I'm assuming there's ammo storage here. The Meatball is not going to tank these shots very well. So we've got to be shooting at something down there. Probably, maybe. No? Okay, sure. So that lag spike was the Trondheim spawning in? Yeah. It's got those, and this is a good darkness level to really see it. It's got those really iconic Sea Whiz from the Steel Striders that seem to be so effective. Although, when I went and tested them out myself, you can build more effective Sea Whiz that don't use belt feds for the same cost. And when I say more effective, I mean they're more effective while they're operating than the belt feds are when they're operating, not like amortized time. They're more effective all the time. So I think the Meatball is becoming unhappy pretty quickly, but ooh, the Trondheim might actually be even more unhappy. It's not aiming. She's listing quite badly. Yeah, AI dead. It looks like the Paper Tiger tore a hole through her. Would explain why the Meatball never actually turned this way. This is a Thunder Child, right? I don't see them very often. I'm, vaguely aware that they're a ship. Looks like 75% Deepwater Guard and 25% Steel Striders. Is Victoria AI dead too? No, she's aiming. Yeah, so having two of these I think was actually what was giving me the problems before, but having it spawn directly under a ship that can't really fight back in that position is probably going to be a bit painful. All of the Sea Whiz from the Meatball launches forwards. So the Meatball's turning around to fight, and this should be okay as long as we don't lose all of the lift jets. As long as we don't lose all of the lift jets, this is still being a little frustrating. On the side, which doesn't seem to be happening, and the tail doesn't get blown off, which would take out all the ammo. Still not a huge deal, because I think the racked shells will be enough for this battle. Victoria's still mildly functional, I guess. Paper Tiger is shooting upwards. I'm assuming those aren't laser turrets, that those must be lambs. They're not flickering the way lambs would usually. I've also noticed that my lambs seem to fire at things that are too far away for lambs to shoot at, and it's draining a lot of laser energy. Yeah, okay, those are doing lambs things. I'm not sure this is going to be effective. I have not had good success with it in the past, and I'm not having good success with it now.
Listening. Control's yours. Moving out.
The shells are just not fast enough. They're losing speed too quickly in the water. It looks like we've gotten a lucky hit or two, maybe from the Paper Tiger. It's hard to tell. I don't see entrance wounds. The Paper Tiger would leave entrance wounds, the Meatball wouldn't necessarily, so maybe it's Meatball hits. But a lucky hit of some kind does seem to have crippled her. We got a little too close and are having trouble with gun depression. There we go, we have decent gun depression. Oh, never mind, that still was... There we go, a few shells coming out. Bounce.
Moving out.
Back up just a little bit more. There we go. Submarine killing at its finest. Which is kind of why I don't really build dedicated submarine killers. I have taken a lot of fire though while this has been going on.
Receiving. Engaging now. Receiving. Engaging now.
So the Paper Tiger's been taking a long time with the Cyclone. Hopefully she's not getting herself into too much trouble. Maybe the Paper Tiger's not actually shooting at the Cyclone. That would kind of explain it.
Engaging
That she's
now.
still here, I would like her to die. She's not doing very much, though. That would explain that. Alright. I was worried for a second that the Paper Tiger's guns were taken out, which shouldn't be that hard to have happen, but practically speaking, doesn't happen that often. There comes in the Husk. I actually kind of wish they got a Star Wars sort of hyperspace warp in effect, the way they just appear there. There's really no excuse for that level of a miss. Oh, it's not a miss. I was going to say there's no excuse for that level of a miss because the detection accuracy will be very good at the start of the fight because it's being received from the other ships that have been in here for a while.
Listening. Taking control.
Victoria is despawning. It's just the... Oh, the Laco is still here, isn't she? The AWSs do not seem to be taking her out very fast. I'm imagining the Thunderchild is going to be the next real target. Once we're done shooting at the defenseless and inactive Victoria, of course. Okay, there's more than one Laco. I do not really remember what the Panther is. I'm sure I've spawned it in before. But I have not really seen her that often. This looks vaguely familiar. Alright, now that the Meatball has stopped shooting at the Victoria, one last shell there. Another shell. Okay, presumably Thunderchild. No. The Lacos. Which are hugging, of course. Okay, it is the Lacos. I was thinking not the Lacos for a bit, but the Lacos are maneuvering under us. Which I would think is very smart if the AI actually had any capacity for intelligence, which it of course doesn't, so they're probably just doing this because they're ramming each other. And they take absolutely forever to kill, because my CWIS has turned into garbage. Okay, so it was the Thunderchild, that's what I was expecting, it's just maybe some difficulty turning, I don't know exactly. Definitely not a level of APS firepower that the Thunderchild was really built to withstand, and for about 90,000 materials, there's really not much you can do about it. That was a really bad shot. The Paper Tiger seems to be not listing exactly, but going nose up a little bit more than I was expecting. Definitely some issues with barrel depression here. Not so much barrel depression, but barrel length, not being able to just poke through a ship, which is, you know, the from the depths version of barrel depression. And there we go. I think that was actually pretty much the majority of the remaining Steel Strider ships, but I'm sure there will be a surprise or two lurking around. Here we have the Maelstrom, and I really just want my revenge from the previous time that she showed up. Here we have lasers, and there we have railguns, and, well, this is making the Maelstrom pretty unhappy, although she did tank those railguns. I don't know if it's just because it hit the back, or if it's because they're bouncing on shields, or if it's because the Maelstrom is a flying brick of heavy armor. But she tanked a lot of damage there, and she's disintegrating. I think she's disintegrating. 85% still, I guess not. That was just a big line of heavy armor blocks that fell out. We've put a fair number of shells through her, but looks like we haven't had the good luck of actually killing her. And if we don't soon, she's going to actually become a problem just from tanking our shells for so long. I see a puff of smoke and an iconic silhouette. There is a lot of stuff that can spawn in here, and it looks like the enemy has been much better at spawning their stuff in than I have, despite my very large amount of volume. Looks like the attention has mostly come off of the Maelstrom. I doubt that she has much firepower left, which has probably caused the tension to shift. Paper Tigers really do a much better job of shredding these flyers than the Husks do. Part of it's probably because they have much better stability. I don't think the Annularis really has a whole lot going on other than her aircraft, and her aircraft I don't think are going to be particularly instrumental here. Well, that Hake never really took off, it looks like. Not sure what happened there. Anyway, I'm going to skip forwards a little bit to when more things happen. It looks like I'm having some performance issues due to these Paper Tigers hugging, so I'm going to try to rectify that before I lose because of it. Actually, it might be way too late. It also seems like there's some sort of bug here going on with my lasers. My vertical lasers that are meant to take out aircraft are just permanently firing on this vehicle. And they dealt each other a massive amount of damage when they collided. I'm really not sure how they did this much ramming damage, but they absolutely destroyed each other, which is really unfortunate because there are submarines here, and these Paper Tigers were what was supposed to spot the submarines. The versions of the Hake on the Annularis do not have any scuttle settings, so I have been struggling with this for quite a long time because my one remaining Paper Tiger has drifted away from where I can repair it and has lost its lasers. Thank God that one died, but there are many more doing the exact same thing, so I've spent at least half an hour so far trying to pick off the stragglers, and I'm certain I will spend quite a bit more time. Well, I believe this is finally it. The Meatball turns out to have been the MVP because with flak no longer working as anti-aircraft cannons, really the only effective strategy is just covering the entire sky with lead. But, there's one more. But anyway, I'm basically done now. Unfortunately, really killing aircraft at this point mostly seems to be down to, at least small aircraft like this, just unreasonable volumes of fire unless I use lasers. All of mine are, of course, offline. You can try missiles, but you're not going to hit this with a missile, and if you're using radar guidance, just a little bit of chaff on this thing is going to make it impossible to hit anyway. I mean, if it's doing this, you're not going to hit it with any type of missile, really. Let's see if the meatball gets here this time, or if it's another craft that does it. There we go, yeah. The meatball just spraying a ton of shells has been what's getting most of them. So this is going to be a pretty trivial fight if the lasers on the husk actually do what they should do. However, I found these new Falcons to be very scary for what they are, at least for the Steel Striders. So my Darning Needle, sort of the old Thopter that I built a while ago, was really built to take on a lot of sort of craft in the fighter roles, because it's very brawler based. It can tank missiles and then retaliate with packs that just kill the enemy craft. However, the EMP payloads in these just completely destroy it, and actually the large amount of missile firepower, relatively large amount of missile firepower per craft, it's 60 total for the 96,000 materials for the Falcon Squadron, which isn't terrifying, but compared to the standards of the Steel Striders and that sort of thing, and the aircraft in general, it's really a big step up. So definitely be careful about these new Steel Striders air vehicles. They're not the pushovers they used to be, even if they're still not amazing. Also, I've been seeing a lot of thrust vectoring out of them and that sort of thing. I'm not sure if these do it. They do, in fact. Yeah, I can see the CJE is thrust vectoring. They're definitely, in general, more maneuverable than they used to be, have better firepower than they used to be, and largely due to a lot of changes around armor values and that sort of stuff, they're much more heavily armored than they used to be as well. Looks like there's some friendly fire going on there. I'm not using EMP. I'd be unsurprised if that one's AI dead, but somehow that one took a lot of EMP and is not AI dead. So, even though you think that APS is mostly for show, I found it's more successful than you'd really expect. However, I'm really just waiting for the husk to laser everything. That's kind of how this will get done. A platform with more stability than the husk and slightly better detection would really be how to get these killed pretty quickly. Husk also doesn't really have that much laser firepower, so it's going to take a while. There still is a role for lasers in this game, even if they're terrible at killing actual ships, because pretty much every ship in this game, at any reasonable difficulty setting, carries smoke. And it's just such a brutally hard counter. Yeah, so that's a big chunk of blocks falling off. Admittedly, Meatball's made out of wood. There's not a lot of armor there. That twitched up so fast it looked like it hit something, but I didn't see the insane amount of damage it would have taken if it collided with something as massive as the Meatball. So that must have just been aerodynamic. So we got through them with, the 46. I think it might be a little bit more than that. Laser firepower that the husks have, 46. So still very killable, especially with this much of a materials advantage, but I would definitely be just a little bit more wary about them than I have in the past. So I'm a bit interested to see how this is going to go. This is an infamous fortification from the Steel Striders. Fortunately, this gun spawned kind of the wrong way, but we also spawned kind of the wrong way, so I've got the bunker-busting duo of the Husk and the Meatball, and, well, we've got to take on some Liberator cannons, and I'm not sure we can do it. So the main difficulty here comes from the fact that I think the Liberator cannons will just sort of annihilate the Meatball before it can really do anything about it, and their CIWS took out all that pure HE cram, which is really what I needed it to not do. However, we didn't take that much damage from the Liberator Cannon, and the Liberator Cannon cannot take return fire from us. This is just not something that has the type of defenses necessary. It does have the CIWS, but this Hesh is Just going to completely mess it up. This isn't really the location that we wanted to hit it in, straight down the barrel, but it was certainly effective. And now we're retargeting to the other one. On the other hand, we did take... Oh, now I'm just seeing muzzle flashes. We took respectable damage. I was seeing the HE from the Liberator going off pretty deep in here. So, it would not have taken that many shots for it to become a problem. Thought we changed which one we were shooting at. Probably did. These usually drop to 0 firepower very quickly. Yeah, they're both at 0 firepower. And then they've got this guy, which I think just shoots some low firepower flak. This thing should shoot missiles, but I don't know if it's doing anything. No, it's not either. I have trouble telling heat and thump missiles apart, honestly. There's a giant HE payload, though, which, usually put with a heat warhead in front. And presumably severed the top of it, because that was too fast for a normal despawn. I'm glad something decided to shoot at this, though. Oh, it didn't kill it. It's firing now. That's interesting. I'm not sure if these missiles have guidance. Well, it's effectively taken out, so I'm gonna watch the rest of this shelling, but, well, this is already over. They're not fighting back effectively at this point. Well, this is annoying. The Husk's accuracy just leaves a little bit to be desired when it comes down to killing these nukes. It certainly can do it. It killed a few of them, but there's also a few left because 8 have been launched. The Paper Tigers would have just completely annihilated all of them before they did anything. It's mostly the fact that the Husks have horrible stability because they've been flailing around for no easily discernible reason the entire fight. Unfortunately, the meatball can't maneuver now. I don't think there's really... Okay, there's the actual airfield left afterwards, but... Well, it won't be that much left for them to fight. Also, these nukes can go down in literally one tap from a laser, or they can take an eternity depending on what blocks you hit. I think they're all down now, though. And the airfield's not really going to do anything. Well, this is the last one. This is Damascus. Well, if you're going to be specific about it, this is a Craftsman, but we're at Damascus, and I thought, how better to end this than with Miles. Hopefully Miles will be sufficient by himself. Maybe he won't, but I'm cheering him on. I set the battle size for 100k, so the enemies are going to spawn in one at a time. There's not much, though, other than Damascus. Miles is so large that finding out what else has spawned is often a little bit of a problem. This looks like a Revox munitions factory. I didn't realize eventually these missiles do a lot more kinetic damage than I thought, but still not enough to explain whatever it was that was going on in the last episode. And Damascus should spawn in. I think there are a total of 3 vehicles. Not nearly as much lag as Miles causes when Miles spawns in. See, targeting clusters of blocks seems to be working there, shooting at that missile thing rather than the lumberyard. These missiles can kind of go for wherever, but, this works, I guess. Perhaps I shouldn't have put fuel engines all over the place here, but, fuel engines are relatively cheap. They're not optimal to use as armor, obviously, but, having them get shot at isn't the worst thing in the world. It's interesting how these missiles spread out so much, though. It's not like they just go for one place. A lot of them go for the lumberyard area, but they kind of spread out, and some of them just go for random wood beams. Which, you know, if you cut enough of them, you could sever large parts of Miles. We haven't seen that happen before, but using missiles for that might actually be a reason to, you know, not build your craft like this. There are a number of other good reasons to not build your craft like this. You could get a lot of the advantages without making your craft as large as Miles is, which will cut down a lot of the disadvantages. So, you know, I definitely advise for more like kilometers or that sort of thing. Definitely seems to be revealing some interesting stuff though with Aimpoint for what is presumably radar guided missiles. Don't tell me Damascus is still firing. I was wondering if Damascus was AI dead. But there we go with another volley of missiles. Damascus is kind of cool, but I don't know. So much has changed that Damascus looks, to me at least, a little dated at this point. And it's basically just a big hunk of metal that you have to whittle down eventually if Miles doesn't accidentally run off into the sunset before that. I don't even remember what kind of missile firepower Damascus has. It was 60 at this point. Looks like just one missile silo is operating. I don't think there's really much more anyway. Small missiles though, I'm surprised by that. I guess Damascus has been updated a few times. Damascus is so much older than small missiles that I'm actually surprised they were there. This is really the disadvantage with the Steel Striders bases, is just that they're such tremendous chunks of metal that they take forever to break down. To some extent, you kind of have to have them. It doesn't really make sense to fight these little tiny bases that are, you know, kind of weak and stuff, but then at the same time, it's just... This is extravagant, right? This is just a little unreasonable. This game wouldn't really support fleshing this whole base out. Onyx Throne kind of suffers from the same thing. And so does the Quartz Stone Fortress. Fall of a Nation. Well, if the diplomacy stuff works correctly, where you can get a diplomatic victory, this is going to be the end of the campaign. I've never seen it happen before, so we're about to find out. That fight took forever because those peregrines do not have scuttle settings, and I watched a plane spin for about 15 minutes. Played for about 4 hours today. Pretty sure I spent 3 hours of those watching planes spin around in circles. Oh, well. Alright, it's the following day, and I've done a little bit of thinking. I have a suspicion that a diplomacy victory did not happen because this campaign started after the diplomacy victory was added, and it's probably some campaign state or something that has to be set. I was also thinking about the fact that I had a high school sailing coach, and he would always say, remember the golden rule, which is do unto others as they would do unto you, only do it first. And I had a college sailing coach who would say sometimes you just gotta be the big swinging dick on the race course. So, as a result, I've put 6 of the meatballs that were in the Steel Striders together, renamed the fleet into the Sausage Party, and I'm just gonna send them right over here. And we're gonna see what happens. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Let's go find out. They do have incredibly... what should I say? Just narrow reaches of what they can actually fight against. Oh, did I? I didn't declare war. We're going to be bounced out, I guess.
Listening.
We were not. All right.
Listening.
Surprise. Wonderful, we didn't even get all these guys. I appreciate the fact that I can't even spawn on my own green circle because the transient wants to spawn so close. I have no idea why the transient would want to spawn that close, but it seems to. Setting this low volume limit is just going to spawn things one at a time. The Eradness is something that I am not particularly well acquainted with. I feel like I should set the volume limit high enough for everyone to spawn 2 things at a time. But if I look at it, that'll probably just let me spawn 2 things at a time. So we'll see how things go, and if they're not going that well, I'm going to start spawning 2 things at a time. We're going to shell the crap out of whatever this is. A transient. Alright. Well, it's its fault for spawning it. Oh, it's shooting back at me. How dare it? It's also underwater. Well, for its sake, this is better than being above water. Also means that the next one might spawn behind me. Don't think it's AI dead. The fission? Oh, right, it's that missile spamming craft. That's not that scary, but it's actually probably going to do us some damage. We are not fending off that quantity of missiles. It looks like a lot of them are going into the bridge, though, and the damage just isn't that impressive. Alright, the fission is breaking up. And so is the transient. Maybe it was AI dead. Something much larger spawning in. Is this the Eradness? It is. The Eradness herself is not that large. We should make sure to kill her first. I don't think I've ever seen her before. What are these things? Fragments? Please. Please. Alright, there we go. Got little spin block things. Some glass. Lots of particle cannon firepower. I suspect without a flagship, they will not be able to maintain any particular rate of fire. Since we're just made out of wood, this particle cannon damage is not going to be efficient, I think. Cost effective, at least. I'm assuming, yeah, that's breaking up.
Engaging now.
So now we've just got to kill the fragments, which, as long as they're not too dodgy and don't heal each other too much, which it seems like they're being impolite that way. Please stop moving so fast. Oh, they carry a lot more energy than I thought. Not many materials, though. They're not burning it that quickly. But their particle cannons take a lot to fire, it looks like. That was a lag spike. It was another transient spawning in, which it looks like we're prioritizing. We're looking a bit worse for wear. All of our firepower is still here. Lost a fair amount of wood armor. Maybe a barrel or 2. And the fragments have splashed down. Yeah, they burned all their energy. The Eradness is pretty cool. I do want to build a few carriers like that at some point. Okay, I've got a fair number of blocks falling off, and I'm not sure what that's from. I don't know if I'm shooting myself a little bit. These guys can't really be doing any damage anymore. Yeah, I'm shooting myself a little bit. The failsafes aren't working that well. I actually noticed in a previous battle the Paper Tiger was having extreme difficulties with their failsafes. I don't know if there's a recent bug or something, but it's really been wrecking my fleet pretty badly. I did check, and the all-in-one local weapon controllers that I had on each individual firing piece on the Paper Tiger had failsafes, but she shot a shell directly through herself. It's not like it was just even a little close. There was just a hole that went straight from one side of the paper tiger to the other. Oh, I'm not sitting near a local weapon controller or a fire control computer, that's why. This one more. This is a magnetar. I don't recognize these very well. It is a magnetar, which is not a combat craft, but is spawning in before the Scarlet Dawn. She mostly looks pretty cool. I'm not sure if I'm that impressed with a lot of the pipe work on her and stuff, but the overall impression that she gives from more like this distance is pretty good. So let's see how the Scarlet Dawn does. We're currently still on the first meatball. It looks like the Scarlet Dawn is going to spawn next to us, which is a not good thing. So this meatball will probably get torn up almost instantly by the Scarlet Dawn. Hopefully the next one will do a little bit better.
Listening. Control yours. Moving out.
This will help things a little bit though if I turn around. Fortunately, I usually hate this despawning animation, but it's giving me the time I need to turn around right now. Oh, not all the time, though. Guess what I don't have? That's right, smoke. Oh yeah, EMP, look like heat fragments. We are going to be in really bad shape before we finish turning around, if we ever finish turning around. Just didn't quite have the time. Fortunately, we're still returning fire. We've still got some firepower left. The Scarlet Dawn is pretty fast. We're making contact with some shells, though. Not a lot of shells, though. Scarlet Dawn is made out of tissue paper, though. That did serve to dodge a lot of our shots. Yeah, we are much less made out of, well, okay, we are much more made out of tissue paper, but also way more robust, just because even though I built this in a very short period of time, I didn't have to build it to be an easy design. Still getting a few shells in from the wireless snoopers, but not amazing. And the Scarlet Dawn is dying. The Scarlet Dawn, as a faction, not as the craft, actually didn't have many materials left. They threw almost everything against the Steel Striders. I fought almost, I think, 2 million mats here, and maybe a little bit less, like 1.5 million. No more than that, I think, somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million, and they only had 6 million. And I wasn't really seeing anything interesting. I think a lot of those were transients and magnetars. So this is really all that the Scarlet Dawn were going to give me. Well, anyway, we knew that there could have been no diplomatic victory with the Scarlet Dawn. Ultimately, even if the game would have given me one, there would have been some inevitable betrayal, because only one of us really could have ruled Niter. Hey, look, another transient. So, ultimately, with building all the ships, this took 21 hours. I believe I had built my last ship well before the 16-hour mark, and a lot of this was just killing the Steel Striders and stuff and capturing territories. But, all in all, I don't really think that was that bad. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope to see you in the future.